Are you considering becoming a transplant to the Pittsburgh area? If you are a potential newcomer, this video is definitely for you. I'm gonna point out some issues you might not be aware of in your move to the Pittsburgh area that have to do with home buying. Pittsburgh is often known for its affordability, which is why many of you are probably considering a move to the Pittsburgh area, but there are definitely some financial aspects of buying a home in the Pittsburgh area that you need to be aware of. So in this video, we're gonna talk about property taxes, wage taxes, old home issues, sewer issues, and being a newcomer, not knowing who to call when you do have issues. My name is McClinchie, and I'm a real estate agent here in the Pittsburgh area. I serve the entirety of Allegheny County and its surrounding communities. I started this YouTube channel back in 2020 as a service to out-of-state home buyers looking to make the move to the Pittsburgh area. Despite its smaller size, Pittsburgh is an incredibly complex real estate market. I've helped hundreds of families successfully move to the Pittsburgh area stress-free and with no worries. So if you are interested in hiring me to be your agent, please reach out and we can set up a consultation to get started. All right, let's jump right into it. The first one is going to be around property taxes and a shock that you might have shortly after closing on your home. You might be hit with a surprise. So the majority of people coming from out of state are probably coming from a much lower property tax situation than Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is known to have higher property taxes, which is the primary source of funding for our school districts. The system that Pennsylvania has set up for property taxes is left up to each county. And here in Western Pennsylvania, every county has a different system. The big challenge with the property tax system in Pennsylvania is how often properties are reassessed countywide. They leave it up to each county to decide how often they want to reassess everyone. In Allegheny County, for example, the last time every single property was reassessed and got a new assessed value, because that is the number that you pay the property taxes on, it was the year 2012. So that's 14 years ago. And if you bought a house in 2012 for $300,000, it certainly is worth way more than that now in 2026. It's probably worth at least double that. It's probably worth maybe $600,000, which is exactly what the counties go about doing, is they come up with a ratio. What would your property in 2026 be worth in 2012 dollars? So for the last 4 or 5 years, Allegheny County has been very transparent about the ratio that they're using. So local taxing bodies, the municipality, and especially the school district, because that is the bulk of your property taxes, they look very closely at recently closed sales, and they pay attention to how much you are paying for your house, and then they compare that to the current assessed value. If there is a huge gap between the assessed value, again, because it hasn't been assessed since probably 2012, and then your new purchase price, they're gonna do the math and make sure that if they want to appeal, they're gonna raise your assessed value. So we like to call this the newcomer tax, because it really only applies to newcomers. They don't just randomly pick people, that have lived in the same house for 10, 20, 30 years. So if you have that house for a long time, you're not gonna be affected by someone coming up and appealing it, because they don't really have any data on what the true market value of your home is. And so the common level ratio currently for Allegheny County is 50.14%. And there's no guarantee when that will happen. It might happen 2 months after you move in. It might happen, 15 months after you move in, but it will probably happen. This is a way for local taxing bodies like the municipality and the school district to raise revenue without raising taxes. And I'm giving you an example of what happens in Allegheny County, but the same is true for surrounding counties. Now, some of our surrounding counties have recently updated countywide assessments. So every county that is in the Pittsburgh region, in fact, throughout Pennsylvania, has different systems. So be mindful, talk to your real estate expert to get advice on what your property tax situation might be post-closing. You should also, if you're working with a loan officer, talk with your lender about what the impact of those taxes taxes might be, you definitely do not want to pick a loan officer and a lender that is not aware of the property tax issue. And you don't want to be hit with a newcomer tax that all of a sudden surprises you, and maybe you're stretched too thin and all of a sudden you're in financial distress because you weren't planning on getting a big tax increase due to being reassessed to your assessed value and your taxes increasing because of that. So property taxes are obviously a big deal, and that can come as quite a surprise. But here's another surprise I want to mention around older homes. Pittsburgh has the second oldest housing inventory in the country. The median home in the Pittsburgh region is 64 years old. So that means we have a ton of homes that were built before 1950. So as you fall in love with the architectural charm and the historic nature of a new home, be prepared for some post-closing maintenance costs that maybe you didn't plan for. So you definitely want to keep some of these issues in mind. The one issue I always talk about on my channel are wet basements. So the joke in the real estate community and all the contractors that serve basements is that there's two types of basements in the Pittsburgh area. The first type is that already have water damage, and the other type of home is one that will have water damage. So you really can't avoid it with the topography and the way that homes sit on lots where you're typically always on some kind of hillside. And even when you're on a flat area, the water table might be so high that you're still getting water in a basement, and it is really difficult to avoid. We have such heavy rains at times. We definitely have a lot of wet weather, and whether that's snow or rain, and we have freezing and thawing cycles. When you're considering a home in the Pittsburgh area, you definitely want to pay a lot of attention down in the basement and figuring out what those foundation walls look like. As a real estate agent, I've been around hundreds and thousands of homes, so I can give you some guidance. Certainly, we want to get a home inspector to give you their expert opinion on what is happening in those walls. And if we do see some red flags, we will want to get a further expert and get a foundation person, get in there and say, well, what is the remedy for this issue? Some basements in the Pittsburgh area already have French drains and sump pumps. Their foundations are in great shape because they've been recently treated. Others have also been treated, but maybe it was 15, 20, 30 years ago, and some of the systems they use to repair the basement foundation walls are still deteriorating, and maybe they weren't installed correctly. You definitely want to look for any remediation that's been done that has a lifetime transferable warranty. But there is a chance though, even if you do an inspection and everything is perfectly dry and your home inspector says, hey, there's no issues, that does not mean there won't be issues in the coming years during your home ownership. You always want to maintain clean gutters. When it comes to making repairs, we could be talking just a couple $1,000s. Maybe some carbon fiber strips are a good remedy to address a problem early on. But if the problem is too severe, you might need bigger interventions and more remedies with excavation, and things can quickly get into the 5 figures. Now, some of the brand new homes that have maybe built in the last 5 to 10 years, we're not seeing any issues with those. A few other issues that happen with older homes is definitely energy costs. So, these older homes might not have the most energy efficient appliances and energy efficient windows, and they don't have always the correct insulation. And so what you might get a big surprise in your summer air conditioning bill, and your electric bill might be through the roof because your house is not terribly good at keeping the home cool. Similarly, in the winter, your heating bills might be off the charts because you just have so many gaps in your house and your windows are old. And updating those systems, getting a new HVAC system or getting new windows, putting new insulation in your home, those things are not cheap. So, and there are a ton more of issues related to having an older home, such as, masonry issues. We see a lot of chimney issues. We see a lot of brick pointing issues. Some of the ways that you deal with this and mitigate the risk of buying an older home is make sure, in addition to a home inspector, you can hire additional specialties and experts that can give you their expert advice. For example, a structural engineer. So if you are a family looking to make the move to the Pittsburgh area, I would love for you to book a call with me. There's a QR code on your screen right now, as well as a link in the description. If you fill out that form, you'll be able to tell me all about your needs, what your goals are, what type of situation might be a really good fit for you. You can also book an appointment on that form. Tell me what times you're available available, and we'll set up a consultation. We'll meet and discuss all of your needs. We'll set up a plan to make sure that you have a seamless plan to make a transition to Pittsburgh as stress-free as possible. So now everybody's favorite topic, the lateral sewer. This is a messy topic, as you might imagine, but there definitely are some huge issues with older homes that have terracotta and cast iron pipes, and these lateral sewers that have been here for decades and decades, they just don't last forever. So they are susceptible to cracking, they are susceptible to collapsing, they are susceptible to root intrusion from these large trees. So if you are considering buying an older home, I would say anything built before 1980, you should definitely add a lateral sewer inspection. If you just order your standard home inspection, it will not include a camera of the lateral sewer. So you have to hire a separate person. There are some home inspectors that offer that as an add-on service, or you can hire a plumber directly. But here is the snag. So I'm recommending that you get a lateral sewer inspected. They put a camera down there and, they go through the line. Usually they go all the way out and they figure out where it taps into the public main or the city main. And then they pull it back and they record, and they're noticing for any shifts in between the segments of the pipes. They're looking for root intrusion. But the real problem that you need to be prepared for is there is a decent chance, maybe 1 out of 5, 1 out of 4 in some cases, that they can't get to the city main. Maybe there's a blockage, or maybe these pipes are so old and they have some twists and turns that they can't get their camera through it. We also have house traps in the Pittsburgh area. Some homes don't have a house trap at all. Many of them do. And so you're kind of at a stalemate, because the only remedy is to maybe have a $4,000 or $5,000 fix to excavate out, pull out the old house trap, put in a new one, and now you can go through and do the rest of the inspection. Well, most buyers obviously aren't going to pay for that. So that does cause a lot of negotiation issues. To me, that's one of the bigger challenges that a lot of buyers are not prepared for, is everyone kind of thinks, hey, I'll do an inspection, I'll get all the information I need. But sometimes these sewer inspections, while you definitely should do them, you might not end up with a conclusive answer because they just can't get the camera through. No matter what, you should get a rider on all of your utility coverage, so that from where it leaves the house and then connects to the main entrance outside of your property, you can get a rider on your homeowner's insurance policy to cover that, particularly the lateral sewer. And so it's not terribly expensive, and it can cover you for many thousands of dollars that should there be an issue. And if you are able to complete the inspection, but there are significant issues, it's just a big challenge negotiating with the seller. Sellers are not prepared sometimes for you asking for $20,000, $30,000 fix to their sewer. And obviously the buyer doesn't want to take on that cost either. And for our next issue, we're going to go back to taxes, and rather than talk about property taxes, but let's talk about earned income tax. So there's one tax that's essentially impossible to avoid beyond your federal taxes and your state taxes, but your local wage tax. Here in Pennsylvania, every local municipality and sometimes the school district is levying a tax on earned income. And in most municipalities throughout the state of Pennsylvania, that tax is 1%. There's a few places that are slightly higher, 1.25 or 1.5, but the big one that everyone needs to be aware of is that the city of Pittsburgh wage tax is 3% of your earned income. And some income, like investment income and Social Security and retirement benefits, those are not taxed, but just your wages and your earned income. Those are taxed at 3% if you are a city of Pittsburgh resident. Now, the property taxes in the city of Pittsburgh are much lower than surrounding municipalities in Allegheny County, but the wage tax is a big one. And so you really can't avoid it, but you do need to be aware of what the right fit is for you. So if that 3% wage tax is something you're not interested in because you're already giving, whatever percent to the federal government, but at Pennsylvania, you're going to do 3.07% of income tax to the state of Pennsylvania. And then you're looking at least 1% of your local wage tax being collected. And if you live in the city of Pittsburgh, that's going to be increased to 3%. So just be aware that when you're thinking about where you might want to live and you want some urban living, city of Pittsburgh has some wonderful neighborhoods and some great places to live and call home. But if the 3% wage tax scares you, be aware of that, and maybe you want to live outside of the city of Pittsburgh to get a lower wage tax. In doing so, you're also going to get higher property taxes. So just be aware of that too. You want to work with an expert like myself, and the lender that I work with Justin Remp at Federated Mortgage. We can all sit down with you to make sure that you have the appropriate budget so that you can handle whatever best meets your needs, and you're aware of upfront of different homes that are located in different municipalities and the impact it'll have on both wage taxes and property taxes, as well as the transfer tax. So the transfer tax is another one that at closing, you're going to pay a pretty big price. Inside the city of Pittsburgh, you're going to pay 5% split equally between buyer and seller. So you're going to pay 2.5% as a buyer on the purchase price for a transfer tax, a one-time fee, whereas outside the city of Pittsburgh, that typically is 2%. So as a buyer, when you split that equally with the seller, you'll pay 1%. So, and with your income taxes, you'll definitely want to work with a local accountant to file your taxes and make sure you're doing them correctly. And if you need a recommendation, I have an excellent accountant that I can refer you to. Okay, so for our last topic, I want to talk about being a newcomer or a transplant into a new region where you don't know anyone and you've had a great transaction, you've bought your home and you had great negotiations, you got the deal of your life, and now you're settling into your home, but you don't know who to call to do the landscaping for your home, and you don't know who to call to fix some electrical problems that just recently popped up. So that's where I come into play. Certainly making lots of referrals throughout the process, especially once we get that home inspection report back. Buyers want to know, who can I call to fix this or fix that, or take a look at this or give me an estimate. So that is one resource that I provide that my clients overwhelmingly see over and over in my Google reviews. So if you check out the Google reviews that all my clients have left me, they often mention how helpful I was in referring them to experts and trusted people. And so I've carefully vetted all of the contractors that I give out that have helped my clients. If I get some contractors where clients have had bad experiences, then I remove them from my list. So I try to keep that up to date as possible so that my clients who might not know anyone, they've trusted me to help them make the transition to the Pittsburgh area. I carry that on to make sure that you have the right contractors and the right vendors and service providers to help you with any issues related to your home. That is a whole array of people, to your landscaping, your roof, your electrical issues, your plumbing issues. However, in addition to needing contractors and service providers, you might need an estate attorney to transfer your documentation from the state you lived in to now Pennsylvania. So you need someone local to help you with your estate planning. So anything that you could think of, and because you're new to the area, you're not familiar with who you should call, and you just don't want to go out on Google and just randomly pick someone. So I hope this video has been helpful in learning more about some of the issues that maybe you weren't aware of coming to Pittsburgh. And so it's all about information and knowledge. But just to recap, in this video, we've talked about a number of topics, taxes being one of them. We've talked about the property assessment issue and what you need to be prepared that you might face a property tax increase. So be prepared for that. We've talked about the wage tax issue and be prepared. The difference in municipalities have different local tax rates, especially the city of Pittsburgh. We've talked about having older homes and some of the issues that come with that, particularly the lateral sewer and all the issues that come with having older sewer pipes that might be, fragile and might face collapse or might have house traps that are outdated. And then finally, I've talked about the vendors and the contractors and the service providers that I can refer to you that you are being new to town and you feel a little lost and you need some guidance on any number of issues. I have another resource that's available in the description below. There's a link there. There's also a QR code on your screen that you can download my Pittsburgh relocation guide. You're going to find tons of information about what it's like living in the Pittsburgh area, as well as neighborhood highlights of some of the communities that the families that contact me are the most popular. So it takes a deep dive into the real estate markets, why people like living there. So please download that relocation guide to get more information. The relocation guide can really help provide you a lot of information so that you can think about a move to the Pittsburgh area with confidence. And I really appreciate your time watching this video. Thank you and welcome to Pittsburgh.